Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. I'm your host Orieus, and today we'll be ranking every boss in Dark Souls 3 from easiest to hardest. These bosses will be fought solo on New Game Plus as to avoid any unfair rankings due to an incomplete character build and or phantoms. With that being said, let's start things off with an obvious choice. Yeah, I know, how original, but the Deacons tend to get bottom placement for a reason. They're just stupidly easy. Not only do these beef jerky clergymen shuffle around at the speed of molasses, but they have barely any attacks to speak of. The only attacks you'll likely be seeing in this fight are a few occasional stabs from their candlesticks and a fireball here or there. They do have an attack that can curse you, but you can avoid this by simply killing them before they do it. The boss's difficulty banks on you not being able to work out the trick to beating it, which is to do what you do in every other video game known to man and hit the damn glowy thing. Once you re-murder 5 of the walking big red buttons, you'll have a surprise visit from the Pope and his posse of BBWs. And by surprise, I mean actual surprise. How the hell do you crawl out of a stone floor like that? Voodoo? Is it voodoo? It's voodoo, isn't it? Well, either way, the big boys aren't much of a threat as the only spell they have attuned is Force, and they don't have any ledges to blast you off of. No joke, this boss's ranking would shoot up by a solid, 5 slots if it took place in the Bed of Chaos's arena. Once you've said your 50 Hail Marys and confessed your sins, pop a bad touch and the rest of this Scooby gang decide to become a flash mob, leaving you with only a small doll for your troubles. Wait, a doll? It is voodoo! The Ancient Wyvern deals a lot of damage and is incredibly tanky, making it easily one of the most grueling fights in the game. So why is this low on the list then? Simple, because you don't have to fight it. All you have to do is hit it with one plunging attack to instantly kill it. In order to do this, you have to run through a large section of the boss arena, avoiding basic enemies, to reach a high point to jump off of. Some of these enemies can be a bit of a challenge, but why bother stopping to fight them? Just run on through and you're golden. Of course, you can fight it head-on, but you'll be dealing such pitiful damage that it's ultimately not worth it. Hell, if I knew back in Dark Souls 1 that every dragon died from a swift bop to the noggin, I'd have beat Calamite on my first try. Here Gwyn was tossing lightning at these guys all day, and all he needed to do was just punch them in the head. The only reason this boss is higher than the Deacons is because if you get clipped by one of the basic enemies, it can potentially get you killed. Oh well, hopefully our next boss is a bit more challenging. Curse-Rotted Greatwood sounds like a nickname for an STD. Speaking of genitals, that's what you're aiming for here. This tree is covered in sacks of pus that will pop like water balloons after enough hurt is laid on them, but the main ones you should be focused on are located on the Greatwood's crotch. Luckily, popping these zits isn't much of a problem because the tree's attacks are incredibly slow with hilariously long windups, getting Old Iron King flashbacks. The regular mobs pose more of a threat here than the boss does, so busting the tree's balls proves to be a piece of cake. After you've played enough hanky-panky, the Greatwood will perform the Dark Souls patented booty crash special and destroy the floor beneath you. Suddenly, rocks fall and everyone dies. The end. I'm joking, of course, but this does kill all the mobs for you. Next, the tree will grow a long, spindly hand out of its crotch, adding a new set of moves to its erect wire as it does. None of these new moves pose much of a threat, mind you, so just repeat what you did in Phase 1 and bathe in the victory. Speaking of bathe, you should probably go take a shower after fighting this thing. Nasty. With how awesome Wolnir's design is, you'd expect him to put up more of a fight, but sadly, he doesn't. Sadly for him, anyway. Wolnir, much like the Deacons, is another puzzle boss. Yay! Trouble is, the answer to the puzzle is the exact same one as the Deacons. Hit the glowy thingy. Turns out Wolnir is so scared of the dark that his bracelets are his night lights. Aw, that's adorable. Okay, maybe not that adorable. Scaredy Skelly actually has a pretty wide array of attacks, but most of them are pretty useless in terms of dealing damage, and only seek to annoyingly move the bracelets away from you right as you're about to destroy them. He does have a sword that puts on a sweet rave party, but it's not good for much else other than looking like it lost a fight with a moth. Wooly the White's strongest attack isn't even an attack at all. Apparently, the only food available in the Abyss is Taco Bell, because Wolnir's entire lower body is coated in a deadly gas that'll decimate your health bar faster than Zero Lenny decimates Vati's mom. It's easy enough to stay out of the mist, though, landing the Skeleton King a firm place near the bottom of the list. Oh, by the way, pro tip to new players, you can actually destroy a bracelet as soon as the fight starts by hitting it with a fully charged R2, assuming your weapon deals enough damage. Finally, we reach the tutorial boss. Ain't that peachy. We come across this beefed up knight with a sword in his chest, apparently waiting for some idiot to come pull it out for him. Gundyr here does a good job of keeping a new player on their toes, quickly forcing you to adapt to the quicker nature of Dark Souls 3. His attacks don't deal a crazy amount of damage, but they do enough to make you hastily reach for your sippy cup if you get caught. He's got some reach on him, so try not to keep your distance when fighting him unless you're using magic. Once you bring the boy down to about half, he'll suddenly think he's in Bloodborne and grow a giant black pus monster out of his back. His attacks hit a lot harder in this state, but they also have even longer tells, making them a cinch to dodge. Keeping true to his Bloodborne fantasies, Gundyr's Phase 2 onslaught can usually be dodged fairly well by just strafing left. After you're done dancing around him like he's a half-blind dog, he'll give up on life and crumple to his knees, giving you the coiled sword and access to the Firelink Shrine, where your waifu awaits. You know, Vort and Eudix must have been really good friends, because we have yet another boss that handles like a basic Bloodborne enemy. Vort shows up to bark at you that his water dish is empty when you go to leave the high wall, forcing you to pay attention to him. Crawling on all fours like a beast, Vort's moveset is almost entirely avoided by doing like what most hookers do and staying under him. Tickle his tummy enough and he'll decide to move on to Phase 2, which he signals by playing a woo.mp3 before putting on his favorite episode of Thomas the Tank Engine. At this point, Vort takes a significant increase in threat potential as his entire body suddenly becomes a hitbox, making you have to come up with a completely new strategy to beat him. Oh shit, I can't get under him, but what am I gonna do if I can't— oh, you can just roll left. Easy to avoid, but if he does manage to clip you in Phase 2, it almost assuredly means death unless you dumped all of your levels into Vigor. Personally, I like to put my levels into damage dealing attributes because the less time the boss spends alive, the less mistakes you're likely to make. Either way, put this puppy back in his kennel and move on. Yorm's size and epic music may intimidate you at first, but don't be fooled. He also deals insane amounts of damage and has a massive health bar. So why is he only number 19? Because demon souls, that's why. Scurry behind Yorm to get a look at his throne and you'll find a very familiar looking sword waiting for you. Quickly equip it and move away as fast as you can, because Yorm doesn't take too kindly to people touching his favorite rocking chair. Charging up the Storm Ruler with an L2 will make it wreathe itself in a mighty wind. Afterward, you can then swing it at Yorm to send a gust of wind at his head, which really hurts because he has allergies and forgot his Claritin at home. Ruining the poor kid's sinuses with a dose of Ligma causes him to fall to his knees in pain. Apparently, Yorm has an intelligence of 10, though, because after having a sneezing fit enough times, his Nerd Rage perk goes off and he suddenly gets a lot faster. Despite the shorter windows of attack, your goal here is still the same. Blow wind in his face a few times until he runs off to tell his mom that you're a mean poo-poo head. If you complete Sigurd's quest line, he can actually help you out in this fight, making it even easier to bully Yorm into submission. Yorm only makes it up this high on the list because his attacks can one-shot you if you're not careful, and given his reach, this can happen a lot without proper dodge timing. Still super easy, though. This boss can go one of two ways. Either you absolutely trash him in seconds, or his clones all fire soul spears at just the right time to banish you to the Shadow Realm. The Sage has a decent variety of magic attacks that all take different strategies to avoid and deal hefty amounts of damage. However, most of these attacks are incredibly easy to dodge, and the Sage's meager health pool makes laying the smackdown on him a piece of cake. Once he's at half health or lower, he'll cast his ultimate spell, Shadow Clone Jutsu. His clones will litter the arena and start spamming you with their own equally deadly spells. You have to scramble to find the real one and smack him in the face enough times to finish the job. Trouble is, he likes to teleport, moving to a new spawn location while shuffling his clones around as well. My strategy to beating him goes as follows. Step 1. Get right in his face, but don't attack him. You want to wait until you see him wind up his hand like he's going to slap you. Then, you parry his attack and riposte, chunking him for nearly half his goddamn health. He'll have enough time to get in most of a full bar of stamina's worth of attacks before he teleports away. Step 2, run to the other side of the arena, as the Sage likes to spawn as far away from his previous location as possible. By this time, he should be low enough to finish off in a combo or two. Remind him that intelligence is just blue dexterity and continue on. Oh yeah, something something Big Hat Logan. After trudging through a poisonous swamp of boredom, you stumble across the headquarters for the Orieus fan club. The Abyss Watchers can be seen fighting one another in the cutscene until there is only one standing. Upon seeing you, the remaining Watcher challenges you to a fight, to which you accept because Mama didn't raise no bitch. You begin the fight having a splendid 1v1 experience until the Watcher calls for backup. Right as you're about to curse FromSoft for finishing a poison area with a goddamn gank boss, a third Watcher stands up, but he's on your side. You can always tell which one is your buddy because he'll have glowing red eyes. Once you smack the original Watcher to half health, he'll reveal in another cutscene that he is actually not the president of the Orieus fan club, but rather the Lady Maria fan club instead. He gathers up all the blood in the room and lights his sword on fire with it, somehow, standing up to challenge you again. This time it really is a 1v1 duel, but all of his attacks have extra fire after effects, so watch out. The Watcher's moveset isn't exactly hard to dodge, and provides many backstab opportunities, but it is erratic enough to throw off new players. If you really want to assert dominance on the edgelords, you can parry them for maximum humiliation. Or, if you want to turn the tables on them, you can gather up the 4 NPC phantoms for this fight, and gank back even harder than they do. If you're facing these guys on New Game Plus, you can actually make this fight even easier by using their own weapon against them, as it deals increased damage to abyssal enemies. This includes Dark Wraiths, too. Now we come to the boss that is simultaneously my least favorite and most favorite in the entire game. Dancer is a relatively fun boss that will absolutely kick your ass if you do not memorize her moveset. Her first phase isn't too hard, requiring only minimal dodging performance to get around her occasional swipes and loving embrace. However, her second phase is where the annoying part comes in. Dancer will pull out a second sword and become much more aggressive, completely changing the tone of the fight. Her attacks are very erratic and make you think that she's actually having a seizure, until she chops your HP bar in half while you were too busy staring at her butt. Every direction that you think you should be dodging, you actually want to dodge in the opposite direction, because she likes to do a little shimmy before every attack that makes it look like she's going to hit from the other side than she actually does. Sticking close to her ass is actually the key to beating her, as very few of her attacks reach back there, and those that do are relatively easy to dodge. If you come into this fight packing any lightning or dark damage, you can hit even harder than you wish you were already hitting her. With your weapon, you pervert. This is the boss that I died to the most on my first ever playthrough of this game, but now I tend to beat her early to get a quick plus 10 weapon. I'm not bothering to count the PvP version of this fight because it's just every other PvP duel you've done, but with extra stuff. The NPC version of Half-Light is a joke. Most of his attacks are easy to dodge, and parrying him is simpler than the average audience member of a Michael Bay movie. He can pull out a bow to keep you at range, and if you see him one-handing his katana, it means he's gonna parry you. But so long as you keep those things in mind, he's no problem at all. Mind the KKK member that spawns with him, as she can heal him while you're not looking. There's honestly not much to say about this fight, though. It's a bland and generic NPC fight with some added bullshit thrown in. Whoopee.
Let's get ready to rumble!
After running through a spookier version of the starting area, you stumble across a less spooky version of the first boss. Champion Gundyr doesn't have a Bloodborne-styled Phase 2, but what he loses in yuck factor he makes up for in move variety. Gundyr is much more aggressive and much faster in this fight, moving from combo to combo with the grace that can only be found from giant men in bulky suits of armor. Wait, This time, the Phase 2 is signaled not by the screams of the damned, but by a sudden drop to your health bar as you get run over by the pain train. This is easily the best dude in armor boss that FromSoft has ever made, and it is an absolute blast. However, there is one major thing that keeps the champ from being the actual champ. He can be parried. Much like Gwyn, if you have good parry timing, you can turn Gundyr into an absolute joke of a boss, forcing me to dock him a few points. Also, is it just me, or does this dude never seem to land his kick attack? Maybe he should set down the halberd and go pick up a soccer ball. No joke, getting to this fight is harder than the fight itself. The Gravetender makes you think that it's going to be an honorable duel, ignoring the pack of wolves that he sticks on you immediately. But then, after you spend enough time shoving your crystal halberd into his gaping dragon, he decides that he's done playing fair, and much like every other PvP player, calls for his buddy to come gank you. It just so happens that said buddy is a Sif wannabe. Once the Great Wolf comes to play, the Gravetender switches over to casting magic in true ganker fashion, so watch out for stray soul arrows. Bringing the Great Wolf to half health will make it buff itself with a quick hearing of AU.mp3, to which it will then start jumping around like a white kid that just got told they're going to Nickel World. You must dispatch both nuisances to be victorious, making it paramount that you kill the Gravetender as quickly as possible so as to avoid getting ganked. If you bring a bleed weapon, you can cheese right through this fight with little issue, because apparently being out in the cold makes you bleed more. It's true, I read it in a Vogue magazine. There's little satisfaction in putting down the edgelord in training and his pet puppy, but if you do, you get one of my favorite weapons in the game for beating them, so that's kinda nice. The old Demon King can be an absolute pain in the neck if you come to fight him early. Being on New Game Plus, I didn't have this problem, but no amount of preparation in the world can lube you up enough for that giant hammer. The Demon King hits like a freight train filled with bricks made of cement-covered cast iron, and has enough reach to connect vaccines to autism. The key to beating him is to understand that you can't just wail on him. You gotta hit him a few times and then dodge away. This is easier said than done, seeing how often he likes to get you stuck inside of his arms or in between his legs. If you see him start tapping the ground, back off. He's about to summon a Johnny Cash song to torment you with. If you see him swing his hammer around in the air like he's trying to clear out cobwebs with a broom, whack his ankles until you see the hammer come down, at which you'll want to start running, because it's going to start raining meteors. If you bring poison into this fight, you can basically ignore the king altogether, as he's incredibly weak to it. Probably because his royal food taster is dead, like nearly every other demon. Once you get the geezer close to retirement, you'll see him lurch forward like he's about to lose his lunch. When he does this, you'll want to back off as he's about to say the N-word, and the resulting flame war will create a devastating explosion. March up to the crippled old man afterward and put him out of his misery, you monster. After hearing all the horrible things this dude did throughout the game, by the time you get to Sullivan, you're itching for a fight. The self-proclaimed pontiff can be seen hanging out alone in a cathedral because nobody showed up to his Fortnite party. Approach him and he'll attempt to introduce you to his giant flaming golden sword, but this is where the boys separate from the men. If you're a boy, you can dodge around the sword and start poking him in the butt, since we all know that's what he wants. Or, if you're a man, you can parry that son of a bitch into the next dimension and remind him that anime is, in fact, hella gay. After you've spent enough time debunking the Catholic Bible in front of him, he'll resort to using dark arts and clone himself. You can kill the clone to set things back to a fair fight, or you can keep it around to use as a makeshift indicator for what attack Sullivan is about to perform. Upon dethroning the bastard, you can nab his anime fire sword all for yourself, which is one of the strongest weapons in the game in my personal opinion. If you're having trouble with this boss, you can summon up to 3 different phantoms just outside his fog gate and gank him to death like the casual you are. He's also weak to both fire and lightning, so go nuts. How hard this fight is boils down to one question: do you have a shield? If the answer is yes, this fight is a relatively easy, if not long, bout. But if you don't have a shield, then this dragon can be a major pain in the ass, all thanks to one move: his charge. This damn charge has absolutely no tell whatsoever and can easily one-shot you if you're not careful. It is easily one of, if not the, most bullshit attacks in Soul's history, and the number one reason why I hate this fight. That being said, if you don't get insta-killed by the charge, this fight is still relatively easy. Orieus starts the fight by monologuing about how much he loves Metal Gear, and he gets cranky if you try and interrupt him. Once you tell him that Kojima left Konami, he throws a temper tantrum and starts rampaging around the room like he's in a pachinko machine. Short-circuit him with some electroshock therapy and continue onward. This absolute Chad of a knight will spend the majority of the fight pimp-smacking you with his shield. The main objective here is getting past his defenses to get at him with your sword. But, just when you think that you've seen enough of the turtle shell, he reminds you that he also has a giant lightning axe too. A steady rhythm of dodging has to be kept in order to come out of this fight unscathed, or even alive for that matter. Once you've booped his iron snoot enough times, he'll fall down to his knee into what looks like a riposte position. JK, he's actually just winded, and you just got one shot by his counterattack. Better luck next time. In Phase 2, he starts throwing out attacks that have insanely large windups to them, but they hit like a kamikaze plane. Throw all this into an arena that you can fall off of and some butterflies that occasionally spit on you, and you have one of the more straightforward, albeit challenging bosses in the game. Get good or get dead. This fight almost entirely boils down to trial and error. Aldrich's attacks are varied, spammy, and have ridiculous damage potential. The only way to accomplish anything is to stick to his ass like it's your dinner, which is hard to do considering he teleports everywhere. Most of his magic attacks are self-explanatory, but his melee attacks have very odd hitboxes and weird delays to them, so be careful. Finally, his most dreaded attack is his arrows. These arrows will follow you around the boss room for a solid 10 whole seconds. I hope you have enough stamina to outrun them, or you are simply dead. Try your best to always stay close to him and get ready to dodge when he goes away to teleport, as he creates a black AoE whenever he does. By the way, I hate this guy's title, Devourer of Gods. Last I checked, he's only eaten one god, and he hasn't even finished his damn meal. Like, I'm sorry, am I interrupting you? Should I come back when you're done eating, you putrid ball of slime? Luckily, this boss is actually super easy to cheese if you're a caster, as he's able to be almost completely neutralized with Vow of Silence. Couple that with a few Chaos Fire Orbs to the face, and he'll go down lickety-split. The princes honestly aren't terribly hard, but neither has anything else been so far. You'll start off the fight by asking why the hell there's so many feathers everywhere, only to be interrupted by what looks like a featherless chicken. Upon reaching your obvious conclusion, Lorien will teleport down to your level to inform you that you are, in fact, incorrect. He does this by flattening you with his giant flaming sword. Dodging to the side is what's your best option for dodging Lorien's fiery slashes, but make sure to get in your own hits too. You'll have to keep a mindful eye on the arena as well, because Lothric will be using his magic to teleport his older brother around. Turns out crawling isn't exactly a speedy method of moving. If you see Lorien teleport away and no following attacks come flying at you, locate him immediately, as he's about to slam the ground and create a shockwave so large that it'll send your health bar over to Yimfa's channel to watch some better content. Once you use enough harsh discriminatory action against Lorien, he'll fall over and die like a chump. Lothric will then teleport over to his fallen brother and pop a phoenix down, no doubt one of the hundreds of them lying all over the floor. Now the fight will recommence as it started, but Lothric will occasionally send magic attacks your way while you're fighting off Lorien. Trouble is, Lothric is super clingy and won't let go of Lorien's back, so hitting Lorien from behind lets you get at his younger brother too. What is this, a porn script? Once you've poked Lorien enough times, he'll fall over again, leaving Lothric to tumble to the ground and pop another phoenix down. This is your chance to lay some real pain on the younger prince, so go to town on him. You have to completely deplete Lothric's health in order to win the fight, as he'll just keep reviving Lorien if you let him live. If you're having trouble, bring some dark damage, or even a frost weapon. Apparently, tattered thin robes aren't good for warmth, who knew? Or you can summon the two phantoms willing to help you in this fight. Orbeck in particular is an absolute beast and will deal most of the damage for you. Finish off these two pretty boys and collect your final Lord of Cinder. This fight doesn't really live up to the difficulty hype in my opinion. The Nameless King will almost certainly kill you if you're a new player, but a seasoned veteran can make it through this fight with little troubles. You start off the fight by walking in on one of the King's latest vape showcases, but he quickly tells you that you weren't invited and sicks his pet dragon on you. Dodging the attacks from the Wyvern is easy enough, and if you have a heavy weapon, you can practically skip this phase with how fast you'll down the giant flying lizard. Once you make like a police officer and shoot his dog, the Nameless King will absorb the power of his fallen friend a la Ornstein and Smell. In Phase 2, the King fights you on foot, sending several long thrusts and swipes your way with the occasional gust of wind and bolt of lightning. Most of these attacks have some insane reach, so don't bother trying to keep your distance. Staying on top of your stamina is key to winning this fight, as getting caught out will almost guarantee your death. But, if you're patient, you can continue to dodge around his pathetic attempts to kill you, and send him to meet his pet in heaven, or wherever the hell dragons go when they die. The King is also super weak to fire damage, so use it if you can. The final boss of Dark Souls 3 is a formidable one, unlike both of the previous titles. The Soul of Cinder has many forms it can take, including a typical greatsword form, a spear and miracle form, a curved sword and pyromancy form, or a sorcerer form. The easiest form to deal with is easily the sorcerer, as all of its spells have very obvious tells, one of which even gives you an incredibly long window to wail on it. The hardest form is easily the curved sword form, which is an absolute monster and will obliterate you if you're not careful. I actually recommend just avoiding it whenever it enters this form, just run away. The Soul of Cinder will switch between these forms randomly, like some kind of 13-year-old edgelord that claims that they have multiple personality disorder, so be on your guard. After pounding its flaming butt into the ground, the Soul of Cinder will explode in a blaze of glory and channel a much inferior boss, Gwyn. But the soul can't be parried in this form, so you're gonna have to get good to beat it. Too bad he has less health in this form, and almost all of his attacks leave him incredibly wide open. Oops. With enough skill and luck, he'll down this amalgamation of failures and beat Dark Souls 3. The Demon Prince is honestly the best gank fight that FromSoft has ever made, and I will fight you on that. When you first enter the fight, you'll awaken two different demons, one that came from the basement and one that has lumbago. One of these demons will be in an active state while the other is dormant. The active demon will chase you down like a wild animal and start trying to slash you to pieces like a tryhard you just did the point down gesture to. Meanwhile, the dormant demon will shoot giant toxic lasers at you to keep you on your toes. After some time, the demons will swap dispositions and you'll have to switch focus. Once you kill both demons, Phase 2 commences, reviving them into one mega powerful demon whose attacks change depending on which demon you killed last. With careful dodging, a lot of sprinting, and a whole hell of a lot of effort, you can down this prince. Being demons, they're weak to the Black Knight weapons, so keep that in mind when you're facing them. If you're still having trouble, you can bring in some dark damage and or the two phantoms that are willing to help you. But if you really want to cheese them, you can bring in Doris's Gnawing and spam the hell out of it. I can only imagine how many of you guys are just raging in the comments right now. Midir is a formidable opponent. With a health bar a mile long and attacks that can easily one-shot you combined with a very aggressive moveset, he seems like he'd be an incredibly daunting challenge. Well, he is. Kind of. Midir can be a frustrating fight if you don't have high stamina, as you'll need to roll a lot in this encounter. His attacks can combo for what feels like years, and all of them really hurt, so you'll have to be on your A-game in order to avoid them. Focusing the head is the best bet to winning, as his feet and tail take so little damage that you're basically wasting your time. Bringing a lightning weapon can make your life easier, but you're still going to be chipping away at his gargantuan health bar. Make sure you're always dodging backwards. You'll get clipped if you try and dodge in any other direction. If you see Mudir start to put on a light show with his giant laser, you're going to want to run close to him, and quickly, as that attack makes him take a breather afterward, giving you a great opportunity to rack up some hits. After a very long and brutal fight, you'll hopefully come out on top. Also, here's another 2 really big tips. Number 1, don't summon anybody to help you for this fight. Mudir's health bar is already insanely huge enough, he doesn't need the extra tankiness. Number 2 is because of the fact that Mudir is always considered an abyssal enemy, the Abyss Watcher's sword and Orieus' sword deal extra damage against him. I don't really have any jokes for this one, all I can really say is good luck and get good. Gale, while not being the hardest fight in Dark Souls 3, is, in my opinion, the best fight. The first thing you'll notice is that his boss arena is huge, way bigger than any other arena in Souls history. You'll need all that space, because Gale likes to do a lot of flips and dashes, jumping around like Orieus if you watch too much anime. You'll be greeted with a cutscene of Gale eating one of the remaining pygmy lords, only to throw his lunch at you because you look a little hungry yourself. Little does Gale know that the only thing you're interested in eating today is that slave booty of his. Phase 1 puts you up against a human-sized Vort, essentially, but with a much faster moveset, so this phase doesn't really prove to be too much trouble. Phase 2 will be signaled by another cutscene where Gale channels his inner edgelord and wreathes his sword in dark damage by bleeding on it. This phase makes him incredibly resistant to dark damage, but it also makes him hollow, so yay for you if you've been using the Hollow Slayer's greatsword, I guess. In this phase, Gale stands up and starts to throw much more acrobatics into his moveset, making you have to keep on your toes with your roll timing. Occasionally, he'll even pull out a crossbow to shoot you with, so be mindful of that too. After hitting him enough times, he'll eventually move to Phase 3, which is signaled by him releasing a bunch of darkness from his body that chases you down. Lightning is striking all over the place in this phase, so watch where you step. Gale's moveset now becomes easily the most chaotic and hard to predict in the entire game, probably in the entire Souls series, with an insane amount of reach and AoE damage. Dodge and punish is really the only thing you can do here, and your windows to punish are incredibly limited. Gale can't be parried, but if you manage to hit him in the head during phases 2 or 3, you can riposte him while he's staggered, but your window to do so is incredibly small, so be quick. Bringing poison can help you cheese Gale a bit, but he's still going to be just as aggressive no matter what tactic you're using, so this isn't as cheesy as you'd probably hope for. He's also weak to both fire and frost, so bust those out if you can. Another tip, he's also considered an abyssal enemy, so bust out those abyss killing swords and go to town on him. This is yet another fight where you don't want to summon anybody because Gale already has a lot of health, and you want this fight to go by as quickly as possible. Once you've finished square dancing with Miyazaki's Berserk fetish, you can rest easy knowing that you've beaten the second DLC. Yes, the hardest boss in Dark Souls 3, in my opinion, is Sister Fried. She's got everything. A massive HP bar that spans over 3 phases, an aggressive and erratic moveset, infinite stamina, and your windows to retaliate are as small as my channel. Bringing dark or lightning damage is almost a must in this fight, as she's weak to both. You can bring bleed to really get the upper hand, but it's not going to help you nearly as much as you hoped, because you're never going to be able to proc it, because you're only going to be able to poke her once every 3 minutes. Fried's first phase has her trying to 1v1 you with a few combos here and there, and the occasional grapple. Also with the ability to leap halfway across the arena and turn invisible. Fun. Watching the way the snow moves on the ground can tell you where she jumped to, but it only helps so much. After defeating her in this phase, she'll drop dead only for the Papa Masochist to revive her by setting everything on fire. Weren't you guys trying to avoid flame? What's going on here? In this phase, you're being ganked by the two of them. Fried isn't quite as aggressive here, but Ariandel can easily one-shot you if you're not careful. If you deal too much damage to the father, Fried will start saying her Hail Marys and heal him, so make sure you're playing ultra-aggressive in this phase. Once you've broken up the DDLG scene, Ariandel's voice will ring out a little poem, which is apparently a Dagger Here poem, as it revives Fried on the spot and even gives her a second scythe, no less. In Phase 3, all I can say is get good. Freed's attacks are insanely aggressive, and her combos never seem to end. Even if you do perfectly dodge everything, she'll probably jump away before you can retaliate, leaving your stamina bar crying as she sets up yet another combo. She has a lot of dark damage in this phase, and a lot of her attacks will deal AoE damage now, so just stay mindful of that like a fighter. If you have RNGesus on your side, you'll hopefully be able to down this little edge lady, but not after pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into this fight. You can summon Gale to help you with this fight, but he doesn't show up until phase 2, so I hope you got good at phase 1. Well, that's going to be it for this video. If you like what you saw, be sure to give me a thumbs up so I know to make more of these in the future. If you really like what you saw, don't be scared to hit that subscribe button, as I could use all the help I can get at the moment. One quick thing before you go, I want to end all of my videos with a shout out to channels that helped inspire me to become a YouTuber, and for today's video I wanted to give a shout out to Sunburned Albino, whose channel you can find in the description. This guy is one of the funniest people on this website, and he does his absolute best to give entertaining content without pretending to be somebody that he's not. If you really like witty, sarcastic humor and roasting skills that must have been bestowed to him from the gods, give him a chance. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you in the next video.